My next guest, he has been an avid mixed martial arts fan for over a decade. He is currently a reporter and writer for MMA Junkie. Please welcome onto the show, Nolan King. How you doing, Nolan?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited. You got your Pat stuff behind you, so
Yeah.
give me a little extra energy coming into this one.
There you go, man. Oh man, it's awesome, man. A diehard Pats fan. For the audience that may not know that, I have a bunch of Pats gear in the background for whoever's not on YouTube. So that's what Nolan's referencing to. How you been, man?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. Getting back slowly but surely into normalcy, like we were talking about off camera. And yeah, man, it should be good to kind of finally get to the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're close.
Oh yeah, yeah, we're definitely close. Definitely felt back to have some fan of a full capacity crowd
Yeah.
at UFC 261. It made a huge difference, man. It just added a different kind of energy.
No doubt. It's funny, right? So coming into the fight, there's a lot, especially on our end, we kind of have to analyze what's it going to be like with the fans back. We had that discussion amongst the staff on our different programming, and like the fact that the first punch of the first fight, somebody got kind of dropped. Like, I think that just set the tone for the rest of the night that we were really in for something. And those fans, man, for better or worse, you can argue, should they be there? Should they not? Whatever. They do add something. They added a whole nother energy that it was almost bizarre to watch. It was weird. It felt strange to hear so much energy come out of the fans for grappling exchanges, knockdowns, everything. It was great.
Yeah, it definitely added. It made that event feel special because it was a hell of an event. Amazing fights all the way around. It really felt like a spectacle. Like we were truly watching something special on that evening, and it really was something to really just stand back and just be amazed for, just in case, like for like you that you were analyzing, or like for someone like myself who wasn't there at the event and was watching it like through the television. It definitely added a different kind of layer to it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know we'll get into it a little bit
Okay.
more, but the way that the fights played out too, I don't think the UFC could ask for a better debut with fans.
No, they were all bangers. But before we get
Yeah,
ahead of ourselves right here, right now,
sure.
Nolan, if you can just please introduce yourself and just let the audience know what it is that you do and what you do for MMA Junkie.
For sure. Yeah. I'm Nolan King. You might know me from Twitter or Instagram. I'm trying to build my Instagram a little bit, but Twitter at MMA_Kings. I started writing for MMA related things in 2016, I believe. Kind of worked my way up. Had some freelance opportunities. Worked with Flow Combat for a little bit. Joined on with Tapology, which I still do some side work for. And then in 2019, excuse me, I joined MMA Junkie full time. So I cover the sport. Bellator. I've been at a bunch of their events recently during the pandemic. I've covered the UFC pretty closely over the years. Got cover a few of their events on the grounds as well. And I spend my days watching people fist fight, and I get paid for it. So I can't really complain.
Hey, there you go, living the dream right there, Nolan. Now, for you, it's crazy, man. When we were talking about this, man. So a reason why it feels good to have fans because trying to go back into the normal things or like a normal life. And truthfully, like right now, obviously, we're getting closer there. But man, it feels a lot better. But man, when you look at where we're at a year ago, it does feel good to just be back and to start feeling normal again. I mean, it was a 2020 was, a tough year for a lot of people. And obviously there was a brief period where nothing was on, sports literally stopped. How was that experience like for you during the pandemic? Being a writer and reporter for these kind of events that, it just shuts down completely. How was that for you? How did you
It
adjust, Nolan?
it was super crazy. It was there was a lot of good that came out of it. There was a lot of bad that came out of it.
Yeah.
It was something I think that we all end up better from, because when there's no sports or no fights going on, I mean, you got to get creative, right? You got to find different angles to interview fighters about, find ways to, tap into the public interest. And the pandemic was a big topic of conversation. So catching up with different fighters, what are they doing? How are they handling this? What are they going through? What are the challenges? How are they training? Things like that. I certainly think we hammered home that angle. And then it improved us too. I mean, we got way more tech savvy. We figured out how to do Zoom interviews and StreamYard and everything else. So that was great. But the good thing, I guess, about the fights was during the real down period of time in sports, there was still, our news cycle was maybe the most rapid it's ever been. I mean, between the UFC, trying to book different events in different venues that weren't able to happen, to cancellations, to a zillion fights falling out and changes and people stepping in on short notice, like it was really hard, honestly, at one point to keep up with it. And USA Today owns MMA Junkie, and they took some hits over that time. We had alternating furlough weeks, a couple of months. So we were short staffed, and we had like this crazy news cycle with all this new stuff we had to learn. So I honestly think today we're way better off because of it. But man, it was fast and furious during those weeks and the months that you're referring to,
Oh, definitely. I think the one thing I learned is that you have to adapt. Adapting is very key in what we're trying to do, especially,
Yeah.
we're trying to deal with the sports world or just in anything, even, from a small business to dealing with the sports world to being, an owner of a company. You definitely have to adapt and shift different things. For myself, I was fortunate to still work during the whole, pandemic, during the whole shutdown. But I was able to, come up with the show and do the show just because of the fact that I felt like it was a perfect opportunity to be able to, push out content that people were actually going to watch. So, that's why we're here right now.
For sure, man. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's one of those things again, like we kind of had, and that's a great point you bring up. It was kind of an opposite reaction because we figured, oh, there's no sports going on, there's pandemic, so people are obviously going to be interested in that sort of news. So we expected to kind of take a hit, but I think the fact that people are stuck in their houses all the time and looking for things to do, again, we were able to provide them with some stuff that luckily they found entertaining enough or interesting enough to spend their time with. So it was wild, man. It's not something I hope ever happens again. But there are some silver linings in this whole thing.
Definitely. Now, for you, Nolan, you watched UFC 261, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah, yes I did.
Awesome.
Glad I couldn't have missed that, right?
Oh no, definitely. Yeah. Now, were you able to catch it at home, or were you all traveling for work?
No, so Bellator was off last week, so I worked the event from home. I did I was recap duty, so writing the different recaps that the results post that MMA Junkie does. We split it up among our staff. So I had the main event, and I had a couple of the other fights. I don't remember exactly which ones. I had the Shevchenko fight, main event, and the Crute fight. So we kind of divvy them up, but I watched the whole event from start to finish, and phenomenal.
I get, yeah, phenomenal. It truly felt like a spectacle in that sense. We said it already, it made a difference. I was questioning whether we should have fans or not, just because of the fact that I kind of enjoyed like the whole atmosphere of, it just being like an empty arena. You could hear the corners talk.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh, if fighter number one can listen to fighter number two's cornerman, like would that charge like start to like shift strategies? So it made me think a lot. But man, it felt great, man. I literally put that to rest when we're talking about this, where you see the first punch land and you just hear the crowd's reaction. It energized everything,
1000%, and I think over time, like there's been that debate online, right? It's like, what's been better, was it better to have those fans? Then you get kind of like, sometimes people boo when they shouldn't be booing, and there's that whole debate. But on the other hand, like some people, like there was that crowd of people that liked being in the apex because it's like, man, this is like a real front row experience. You really get to hear things and hear the shots and and I think somehow I convinced myself that I liked the quietness and the hearing everything, but that quickly went away when the fans started roaring, and they made that first fight sound like it was the biggest fight in the world. And I loved it. It was amazing.
Now, for you, Nolan, UFC 261, again, crazy event. What were two takeaways for you that you took from this event now?
I mean, first and foremost, right off the bat, I think Kamaru Usman still doesn't get the credit that he deserves. I mean, it's funny when he started to talk about being the pound for pound best, and that conversation was kind of a storyline that came out of it. I was like, man, we sit around and we talk about this all the time, and he was kind of viewed as a very good fighter, but perhaps not in the pound for pound discussion. But I think he's certainly in that discussion now, and in the way that he's gone from kind of a guy everybody always thought was good but was kind of boring to now being like 3 out of the last 4 fights that he knocked people out, one of which was a fight of the year candidate. Yeah. I think that that's my first takeaway is he does not get the respect that he deserves. Second takeaway, I think, would have to be that when Rose Namajunas decides to win titles, she does it in style. I mean, that was phenomenal. Very exciting fighter to watch. I think we all knew that coming in, but man, she put an exclamation point on that whole thing. And I think that she's somebody that can't be counted out. Her story's been up and down. She's had all sorts of things in the public eye, whether it be kind of, the controversy leading up to this fight, or, some of her mental issues, emotional issues coming out of the McGregor incident, and how that was all thrown in the public eye. But through that all, she persevered, and she's a man. You can't count her out no matter what scenario she's in.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I agree with you when it comes to both of those takes. First of all, with the Rose thing, I mean, it was heartwarming to watch her get crowned as champion again. I
Yeah.
feel like, especially like when seeing her when she lost the title, I felt like she was winning that Jessica fight after the first round, and then obviously it was some crazy slam that did it. Obviously, that's the wonderful sport of mixed martial arts. But it still was very heartbreaking to see her lose that title, not to see her come back though. Again, all the trials and tribulations that this sport can offer to people, she's able to overcome that. So I felt like it was a great story, and we all like great stories, and that was one right there. Usman's a guy though that I can't believe has been doubted so much, and
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. I was telling everybody, and even then heading into this fight, I was telling everybody, I'm not worried about this fight. No disrespect to, the kind of fighter that George Masvidal is. I just feel like Usman's on a whole nother level. And you had no idea, Nolan, how many people were fighting me about this. George is gonna win. George is gonna win. George is gonna win. And I told everybody, okay, I didn't really entertain it so much just because of the fact that that's what everyone told me against Gilbert Burns. So people were telling me about against Kobe. Back when he was fighting Damian Maya, people were still underestimating him during that contest right there. I mean, is there another guy that just keeps getting downed upon and frowned upon, even though we've seen such a marvelous run? I mean, I can't think of anyone right now.
Yeah, no, me neither. I mean, the strides that he's made, I think sometimes us as analysts and the fans as well, like they look at fighter improvement as something that kind of stops once you get to an elite level. Like
Yeah.
talk about prospects. Oh, that guy looked really good in between his second and third fight, or so-and-so broke into the top 15. He's getting so much better. But sometimes when a guy's on top, you just kind of expect him to be where he was. And I mean, coming into this fight, a big conversation that I was having with my coworkers was like, Jorge's got a full camp now. That was kind of the storyline. Could he make it a closer fight? Now that he's had a proper training camp and he's had, opportunity to study the first tape. And what ends up happening is Kamaru Usman got better. It wasn't even, it wasn't a more dominant decision. It wasn't anything like that. He knocked him out cold in the second round. Like the guy's totally disrespected and somebody that is improving, even though he's the best fighter in the world, which is very, very scary for anybody else at 170 pounds.
Yeah, and so the debate with people was exactly what you're saying. Like, how is this going to be for Masvidal? How much closer is the fight going to be? Can George actually knock him out? Do the baptism thing. So they're telling me, oh, okay, well, this Masvidal can definitely win. The conversation I'm having with myself is, can Usman compete with a George St. Pierre from like back in the day? That's what I'm asking myself right now because of the fact that I see such a dominant fighter and a huge display that he's always doing in different kinds of things. Gilbert Burns cracked him. He was able to recover and came back and finished it with a fury. I told myself today, Nolan, this guy can definitely compete with George St. Pierre at his prime. Am I crazy to think that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you're crazy. I think you're correct. And if you would ask me that before the Gilbert Burns fight, I would have said, probably would have been competitive, but I would really lean towards GSP in that fight. But after seeing the last two and kind of thinking about maybe where he's going, I think you can certainly make that case. I mean, if he goes out there too and he beats Colby again and maybe does it even more soundly than the first time, I mean, you can start having that welterweight go conversation. Sure, George had more, will still have had more title defenses. Matt Hughes will still have had more title defenses, but Kamaru's record's unblemished in the UFC, and look at the talent level of the people that he's disposed of pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the craziest part to me is that I don't feel like he's hit his peak yet at all.
No, not at all. It's crazy. I think, like I said, the last two fights specifically, the Burns fight and this one, it's like I thought they were going to be competitive. In the first round with Masvidal, I guess he did have, if you were a Masvidal fan at the end of that first round, I don't think you were feeling too bad about yourself. He had landed some combos at the end, but like other than that, it was, it's pretty clear who the better fighter was in both those scenarios.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Colby Covington deserves a shot though?
It's tough, right? Because when I look at the division, and if you were to ask me who is the best other guy in this division, like who is the, forget about momentum or forget about who deserves a shot. who is the best guy besides Kamaru Usman in that division? And I would have to say Colby. I think, the way that he's evolved his game as well. And he went from being kind of a lay and pray sort of grinder to all of a sudden having this ridiculous striking output, has been another good transition. Fun for me to watch the fighter come up the ranks like that. So I think he is the best challenge for Usman out there. Do other guys that deserve it more? Maybe. Leon Edwards obviously hasn't fought the level of competition that Colby has, but he's won a million fights in a row, with the exception of the last one. So I think there are other challenges out there, but it's hard for me to argue when I think the champion's fighting the other best welterweight in the world.
Definitely. I think Colby's next, should be the next guy in line. I think he
Yeah.
deserves it. I think that was a pretty even fight until you got to the 5th round. Yeah, I'm talking about-
100%.
Yeah, Colby and Kamara. I
Yeah.
think that I don't think the stoppage was a bad one, because Colby
agree.
was hurt, man. Colby
Yeah.
was hurt. I mean, I believe he broke his jaw in that first fight.
Yeah. You got to understand like context. You know what I mean? I think sometimes people look at like a stoppage specifically and they say, if you give them the 10 seconds, they'll say, oh, that was weird. But seeing how he got battered leading up to that and how things were just turning in not a good direction, and the fact that, he didn't necessarily, he wasn't knocked out cold, but he wasn't doing enough to stop Kamaru's onslaught. Like, could it have gone on a little longer? Probably. And it wouldn't have been a late stoppage, but I always kind of look at stoppages as a range, right? Like, you could have a good stoppage that's on the earlier side or a good stoppage that's on the later side. And I thought Mark Goddard was a good stoppage on the earlier side there.
No, I mean, I think I agree with that. I mean, and when you look back at the injuries that he sustained during that fight, obviously, clearly it was the right decision. Do I think that, it's going to go down the same? I don't know now, especially after seeing this last fight. If anything, Kamar's closing the gap and separating himself, especially when you look at the rematch between him and George. Now him and Colby, it's a little nerve-wracking because I like Colby. I'm a Colby fan. I think he does deserve the next shot, and I think that he'd probably be the most challenging fight that there is out there. But still, again, when you look at the kind of animal that Kamaru Usman's been and the absurd way that he's just improving with every single fight, just wow. I mean, I can't even put it into words. Like, the sky's the limit. And I mean, I really do question myself whether anyone right now in the welterweight division can actually stop him.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think you look at Colby's last fight against Tyron Woodley, I think it was very dominant.
Yeah.
He won all 4 rounds and he got the injury stoppage in the 5th, but it was kind of what I expected out of Colby, right? It was where I thought he was, whereas Kamaru's trajectory, he's like impressed me every single time. So, I think, again, Colby will perhaps have a more competitive fight than Jorge or Gilbert Burns did, but I think Kamaru could beat him more soundly this time around. That's my early read on the fight.
Oh, definitely. I'm definitely not going to argue with you on that one.
Yeah.
But now let me shift to the other side of the octagon when it came to this matchup. Jorge Masvidal. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this week, and I was telling him, I think that the next logical thing for Masvidal would either be a Leon Edwards fight, whether he wins or loses, because you could still sell that, because Jorge is coming off a loss, and I think that would get him catapulted back up. In the other matchup, and give me your opinion on this. I think Vicente Luque would be a good one, for him, just because of the fact that what really got Jorge back on the map was a win over a younger fighter in Darren Till. It was a good, I'm not gonna say it was a tune-up fight, but it was a good opportunity for him to step up against a big name or a fast rising star. I think Luque is phenomenal. I think he's rising and he's climbing up the ranks. And Jorge was able to shut down Till in that sense and was able to, put him back down. And I think that it could equally benefit Jorge again if he were able to beat such a hungry lion like Vicente Luque. I don't know if he would be able to win that fight though. But again, I'm just talking matchmaker here. What do you think, Nolan?
Well, that's a fight I hadn't thought of, but now that you pitched me on it, I would froth at the mouth to see that one, man. It's just that's a phenomenal matchup. I think style wise, you could sell that. If Jorge is looking for bigger names or to hang around at the top, I think there's obviously a lot of bad blood with Leon. That would probably make sense in the rankings.
Yeah.
And then obviously too, like, I'm not necessarily a big fan of this matchup, but it's something I could see the UFC doing. Would be, if Nate, regardless of what Nate Diaz does in his next fight, I mean, the rematch with Jorge was something that they were planning to do at one point.
Yeah.
And it's really like, it's one of those things when people view matchmaking, I think a lot of times they think of like, hey, the UFC put these two fighters together, but it doesn't make sense. Why do they do that? But a lot of times it's the fighters involved too. Like somebody doesn't want it or somebody's not ready. And I think when it comes to Nate and Nick and Jorge to a certain degree, like you got to have all parties on board. And if Jorge's just like, I want a big name, I want a big payday, and Nate's like, I'll fight Jorge again, I want that one back, and that's a lot easier for the UFC to make than something that to us makes more sense, that's the way they're going to go. So that's a fight I could see happening. I would be okay with it if it did. Entertainment wise, I don't necessarily totally get the rematch angle, but I think any of those, that one or the other two you named, are viable.
Definitely, and it's funny, I think the best example of what you just said right now would be Robert Whitaker.
Mm,
He
perfect.
it's absurd. The time limit
Yeah.
was absurd for him. So I definitely don't blame him. But obviously, like a lot of casual fans would say, "Hey, why isn't Rob getting
Yeah.
this matchup?" And I'm like, "Well, guys, I mean, he's still got a quarantine 14 days in Australia, and then whenever he has to come back to take a fight, because it'll more than likely be in Vegas or somewhere in the U.S., he still have to quarantine another 14 days, I believe.
Right.
So I mean, that's a full month right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
That
Like,
makes
it's got to
sense.
make sense there's three parties in the equation. It's got to make sense for everyone. And, I think there was one fight. I think it was like when Holly Holm and Juliana Pena were briefly linked to main event some card. Like,
Yeah,
everybody was complaining, oh, Jermaine Durandame, why didn't she get the fight against Holly? That should be a number one contender. And it was like, I'd heard that time frame didn't work for Jermaine, but everybody's criticizing the UFC like, hey, why are you letting Juliana skip the line and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, like UFC needs to put main events in these slots. And if somebody's not on board, they need to keep moving. So sure, there's certain scenarios the UFC's abused that, I think. And
oh yeah,
certainly they've let people skip the lines at times, but it does take three parties to get involved in these scenarios. You got to make it work. It's a big puzzle, honestly.
definitely. Now,
Yeah.
as far as the co-main event though, would you book an immediate rematch between Rose and Zhang?
That's a tough one. I guess, you've got, Esparza's fight coming up here, and she was kind of the next one in line if Rose hadn't taken that fight. So I
Mhm.
guess maybe wait and see what's going on with her first.
Okay.
It's tough because Whaley's was only a champion that had one title defense.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's like that super urgency to, oh, the longest reigning champion needs their rematch, or there was something controversial that went on.
I mean, it was
But
clean.
I also don't think like Joanna's necessarily done enough to fight Rose a third time either. So I guess if Esparza wins, you might have to go that route. But
Okay.
if she loses, maybe you could give the rematch to Whaley. I think obviously people would eat it up.
Oh, definitely. Now, what if I told you Nolan? But Nolan, again, she is a champion. Rematch clause, I know we're not in the WWE, right, to talk about that. But she did win 21 fights in a row.
Yeah.
Can you give her some credibility when it comes to, or be on her side when it comes to her arguing for that rematch, though, even though it was such a clean finish?
100%. I think the thing is too, if you look at like some of the histories of clean finishes, I think the first one that comes to mind for me was like Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos. I
Yeah.
mean, coming out of that first fight, everyone was like JDS just friggin' washed Cain down like the drain there.
Yeah.
50 whatever it was, 1 minute exactly. I think
Yeah.
no need for a rematch, like whatever. But I think there is something to be said about a strike coming early in a fight that perhaps a fighter hasn't gotten their rhythm yet or whatever. So I think that she does have a leg to stand on. I would not complain at all if we got
Yeah.
to see them get matched up again and maybe see how the fight would go if things played out a little longer.
Definitely. The one that comes to my mind is Stipe versus DC.
Yeah. Again, totally.
Crazy, crazy, man.
Yeah.
Crazy the way that series unfolded. Now, what about Valentina's third takeaway there? Who can stop her?
Yeah, that was gonna be my third takeaway if I had been asked for three. It's almost getting to the point where like what's going to happen. It's almost like the fun's getting sucked out of her fights because she's just so good. Like I don't know who they could give her at 125 that I wouldn't see her just doing this all over again, like what we saw on Saturday. I mean, Lauren Murphy has her fight against Joanne Calderwood coming up. I'm guessing if Lauren wins, she's kind of positioned herself in that number one contender slot. You have Viviana Rujao versus Katlyn Chookagian coming up. If Vivian wins, again, you could have that debate, her and Lauren, who, depending on how those play out. But like, do I see either one of those fighters coming close to beating Valentina? I don't. So, I mean, for me, like, depending on what Amanda does against Juliana, I think it would be the time to make that third fight. It seems like Dana White disagrees with me, so I
Definitely,
don't
he
know.
doesn't. I mean, he said that he I guess he'd do it if both of them want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know of Amanda. I mean, I think Amanda, obviously, that the reason why Amanda is fighting is because she obviously enjoys a challenge. But man, I mean, that's still a tough person to fight. Valentina a third time though, and the second time
Yeah.
people would argue that Valentina won. It's a very tough one to go
Yeah.
back to. But you
Yeah.
know, we'll see what the boss has in mind later on for that one. Now, heartbreaking moment. You know, UFC 261, Chris Weidman. Fortunately, tragic injury. You know, life really does come full circle. That was my view on that, and it was very sad to watch, man, just because of the fact that you don't want to see that. You know, you don't want to
No.
see that happen to anyone, and unfortunately, as great as this sport is, and you know all the highs that you feel from it, I mean, there's a bunch of lows. And I was talking to this girl named Chelsea Torres. She was on the show last week, and I was telling her it's crazy how wonderful the sport is and how hard it could be. One minute you're at the top of your game, you're a world champ, undefeated, and then the next you find yourself in a 3 to 4 fight losing streak, and I mean you're fighting to hold on. You know, it's tough.
It is crazy, you know. And I think again, context of that fight was just brutal. You know, it would be one thing. It would be horrible enough if it was somebody, you know, who was 29 years old and kind of in the middle of the card, whatever. Um, but you know, for somebody like Chris, who's been through so much, who's kind of towards the end of his career, some people are starting to question how much he has left.
Yeah.
You know, at 36 or 37 or however old he is, to go
36.
out there and have a snap like that is just devastating on a number of levels. I mean, it'd be bad enough if he got like an injury, you know, if he separated his shoulder or something and that, you know, the fight got called off that quickly. But to go through that whole camp, I'm sure, you know, mentally there's a lot of, you know, stress and build up and sacrifice to go out there and just have something that's just going to knock a crucial year off of your career in front of everyone on the first freaking kick, first strike. Just, man, you couldn't, you wrote that in a movie, the whole thing from him breaking his leg, just like Anderson, to just the whole thing. I don't think people would believe you, you know, it's just absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
No, me neither. I freaked out. I didn't know. I had no idea what happened. And then obviously seeing the replay again. I mean, it was a very bad injury. Obviously, you know, hoping the best for him. Hopefully, you know, we're wishing a speedy recovery for Chris. But you know, Uriah Hall though, what's next?
It's a good question. I feel bad for him too, because, you know, listening to Dana after the press conference, I think, I don't remember if it was somebody from Junkie staff or somebody from the Mac Life or something. They asked him, you know, uh, where do you put Hawk? Like, what, how do you play this? Right? Was it a win? Was it just like neutral, like just a sidestep? And Dana kind of played it off like, you know, this didn't mean anything. Like this is, you know, Uriah didn't advance his career by having that happen. So that's unfortunate. It sucks too, because he was kind of maybe fighting behind him and somebody that didn't have as much momentum as him. So for him to accept that match, go through the, you know, the whole training camp, and then to not get any reward out of it is a tough situation. But you know,
It's
hopefully
crazy.
they give him somebody that's a little bit a step up from Chris, or sidestep from Chris, and they get him booked quickly, because that's going to be brutal as well. You know,
I mean, definitely. I mean, and you could tell. I mean, he didn't want to win that way. You know, I don't think.
no,
Well, you know, no one wants to win that way. You know, especially because of the. You know, you hear those kind of comments from Dana White. I mean, it's like both guys lost.
yeah, totally, totally. You know, it's just it's almost like a waste of his time. You know, I could not when he was sitting there looking at Safe Sayud in the corner, I was just like, man, he was very concerned about Chris. Don't get me wrong, but I think part of him was just like bummed that was, you know, he wasn't able to show any advancements. There was no, you know, everybody's going to talk about how Chris hurt himself, you know, not the win, rightfully so, but
Yeah,
just a brutal scenario, man, to be in.
definitely. Now, I think so. What I would have here for Hall is I maybe push for a Derek Brunson rematch. I mean,
Yeah,
Derek Brunson's
totally. You know,
the top five fighter. Obviously, now that you know you're saying that you know it doesn't really count for Uriah Hall, though. I mean, I'd be very tempted to give him a rematch. Obviously, I don't think he can stretch or go beyond a top four spot because I don't think anyone would want to sacrifice that kind of spot, especially with the kind of like risk that comes with fighting Uriah Hall.
yeah,
But I think a Brunson fight would make sense just because of the fact that Derek Brunson's the guy that they're sending out to kill off all these guys' momentum. You know, you
yeah,
look at Shabazi and you look at Holland and how he's halted everything. I think, here's the thing is that this would be a rematch though. Hall actually lost to him, and he lost to him here in the Rio Grande Valley, where where I'm from. He lost to him, and I believe it was the first round. So that'd be an interesting match to run it back with. I mean, your take on that one?
Yeah, I would certainly dig that. And I think kind of where Derek's positioned would be perfect, right? Like he's certainly, I think, solidified himself for a big fight, but he's also not necessarily, he's not up there with the Whitaker, the Costa, the Cannonier sort of angle and, that level in the division. So, Derek Brunson always seems to never say no to a fight. So I think that's something that's very viable. If Brunson wanted to hold out and fight somebody like Costa, or just kind of wait to that division to figure itself out, I think Jared Cannonier could be a possibility, like depending on the timing, what options are out there. Maybe he just wants to get a fight and get his feet back under him after his arm surgery. So that's another possibility I see out there as well.
Definitely. Now, the following week, we're going to have Bellator 258.
Yep.
You cover a lot of Bellator events. What can the audience know about, that main event between Archuleta versus Pettis?
Yeah, I think that honestly, like, I was talking to a lot of people, and I think the vibe down there at Uncasville, it's like Bellator 258 is the best event that they put on top to bottom since they've come back from their little hiatus. The main event between Juan Archuleta and Sergio Pettis, I think it's a perfect complement to the co-main event, which I'm sure we'll talk about here momentarily. But yeah, it's a great fight. I think it's nice to see Bellator kind of build that bantamweight division. For a long time, it was like Darion Caldwell's world and everybody else was living in it. And Horiguchi came and went. He won the belt and then went back to Japan. So that was kind of out the window. So it's nice to have some contenders. It's a nice showcase of bantamweight talent on that card. You also got Patchy Mix on the card. He was supposed to fight James Gallagher. Gallagher pulled out. Now he's fighting somebody else that hasn't been named yet. So it's just, I think it will be a good display of bantamweight talent and just to show how far the bantamweight division has come in Bellator.
Hey, shout out to Johnny Campbell. He's actually going to be coming on the show later this week.
It's from my neck of the woods.
Yeah, so Johnny Campbell's going to be in that fight card. I look forward to talking to him. Shout out to him for being able to get that fight. I'm really, really from top to bottom. It's an awesome card. I wanted to watch Gallagher fight just because, he's fun to watch. It's still going to be a great card. Archuleta, though, man. Jesus, man. Again, he's another killer, in my opinion. He trains with a bunch of animals like, TJ Dillashaw, who we'll talk about later on the show. But, just the way this guy is, he's won 2 in a row now. He's looking to defend his title. Pettis, who I feel like really needed, I guess, to kind of like change the environment that he was in. I think it's benefited him going into the Bellator side of things. He's won 2 in a row for that brand. And now we're watching him here in prime position to be able to capitalize the ticket and really try to become a champion already. I don't see Pettis winning, though. I have Archuleta winning that matchup, though. Can you give us a prediction?
Yeah, I think so, too. I kind of see Archuleta. I see it being a close fight, but I think Archuleta maybe slipping away in the later rounds and eking out a unanimous decision. I think it'll be a fun fight. Yeah. I really enjoyed somebody that's been in the bubble, the Bellator bubble for the last, 14 events that they've had. I think if I were to give you a top 5 list, I think Juan Archuleta versus Patchy Mix was one of the top 5 fights that I saw. It was very underrated, under the radar. I think after the fact, it didn't necessarily get the respect that it deserved, but Archuleta showed a lot of great things in that fight. He showed he can be exciting. And I think Pettis is a good foil for him in terms of a entertaining matchup. I'm a little concerned about Sergio, still a little undersized for 135 pounds, I think, jumping over from the UFC he was kind of always on that fringe of flyweight and bantamweight. But yeah, man, I agree with long story short, I agree with your assessment. I kind of rambled there, but I think a decision for Archuleta is what's going to happen. Looking into my crystal ball here.
Oh, no, it's all welcomed here, man. So it's interesting that you say that. So I think a big point with me. So I think Archuleta is just so much bigger and stronger than Pettis, so which is what really is concerning for me going into that matchup there. So we'll see. It's going to be a good one, but man, that co-main event's going to be such a banger. Yoel Romero versus Anthony Rumble Johnson. This is going to be Rumble Johnson's first fight since 2017. Crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you guys go look on Mike Bond, my coworker's Instagram, he was down at Sanford MMA last week, and Rumble Johnson looks like he got a shirt, like a shirtless picture of Rumble, kind of a pose photo. And man, he looks like he's in maybe the best shape he's been in, that I've seen in a long time. He bulked up to like close to 300 pounds at one point being off, and now he's getting back down to 205. I can't wait. I think it'd be interesting seeing him kind of slim down and then Yoel kind of bulk up and meet in the middle. And man, Bellator, just that, giving the fans what they want off the bat. I think there's a lot to be said about that. They could have tried to wait and maneuver and try to set it up and put them on opposite sides of the bracket. Hope everything works out. But something to be said about just saying, screw it. We're gonna go right in right now and try to give the fans what they want right away.
Yeah. Now, when I say like it's a banger of a matchup, I think there isn't a better way to describe that. I mean, it's two guys that hit hard, are known for their vicious power. You know, it's gonna be a very grueling. It's gonna be a very physical fight. I just don't know how long it's gonna last when you have
Yeah.
these two fighters in there, man. I mean, Romero's a beast, and Rumble Johnson. I mean, go back to seeing some of his vicious knockouts. I remember I saw him fight when he was a welterweight, I believe, and he fought Tommy Spear.
Yep.
And I mean, Jesus, seeing how he thrashed him, man. I mean, he messed that boy up.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that Rumble was at 170. Like, looking at the guys he fought there, Charlie Brenneman, like
Yeah.
Dan Hardy, like, Dan's got a little bit bulked. He's a little bulked up now that he's doing, mostly doing media stuff and interviews and not really fighting. But I have no idea. I mean, I don't even get how he makes 205, never mind 170, how that ever happened.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, and he's, I mean, he looks in seriously the best shape of his life, man. It's a very interesting matchup, though. I think Yoel takes this one, man. I
Yeah.
just, I think the inactivity, and Romero hasn't fought since 2019, I believe. But I think again, longer inactivity for Rumble Johnson. Uh, oh, it's a very tough one, just because any punch that these guys land can seriously put you away. I mean, where are you leaning into?
I'm going to lean towards Rumble. I think for better or worse, Yoel might be the better fighter out of the two of them. I think skills wise, you would almost certainly argue that. But I just have some weird feeling that Rumble's going to come out there and just catch him, like right off the bat, just kind of send the whole MMA world into a frenzy. Rumble's back and everything. And yeah, I mean, talk about unpredictable a fight though. This one, like, probably 300 different ways that I could spew to you right now, and whatever ends up happening won't even be one of those 300. So
No, but
yeah,
shout out to Bellator though, man. Jeez, I love these Grand Prix tournaments.
yeah. I mean, they knocked it out of that. I don't think the featherweight Grand Prix could have gone much better. Like,
Yeah.
that was the opposite, right? So they did put AJ and Pitbull, I think, on other sides of the bracket, kind of hoping that they'd be the final fight. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I mean, it just worked out that way. I think the way AJ finished Darren Caldwell, like, his stock went way up, and then Pitbull just flattening people on the other side and choking out Sanchez quick, like, his stock went way up. And for them to meet in the finale, I don't think it could have gone better for Bellator.
No, definitely not. Okay, so a question here though: do you think that AJ can foil Pitbull? Pitbull looks unstoppable, man.
It is a crazy, crazy crossroad. I don't want to call it crossroads, but it's a crazy peak of a fight. Just absolute sky high momentum. I think it's probably the best fight Bellator, in terms of hype. It's the most hyped fight that Bellator's put on in years. I think in terms of talent, it's the most legitimate fight that Bellator's put on in years. And yeah, I mean, AJ has looked. Watching him start off, it was kind of a slow burn, and they gave him, guys that nobody knew who they were. And okay, maybe he had too many fights on the prelims, whatever. But since he's taken that next step, he's taken a leap and a leap and a leap and a leap. And
polishing, man, polishing.
Just going out there and submitting Darren Caldwell in, like, whatever, 45 seconds or whatever it was. It's like just so impressive. But then on the other side, it's not like Pitbull showed any signs of slowing down. He's been pretty much unblemished across the board. He knocked out Michael Chandler. I think his last loss was against Benson Henderson in a fight he was winning up a weight class on short notice, and then he hurt his leg in the fight. Like, the guys looked unstoppable. So do I think AJ could win? I do. Do I think Pitbull will be tested in this fight? I do. But I still think I'm still going to lean towards Patricio, just because, again, I when it's a toss-up like this, I always go towards kind of the more proven commodity. And right now, Pitbull's been the guy that's been champ. He's been in big fights, title fights, 5-round fights.
Clockwork for him.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a guy that's not going to be phased by the moment at all.
Definitely, man. It's going to be a very sick fight to watch.
Can't wait.
And the winner, going back to this Rumble and Romero fight, the winner doesn't get it any easier. You get the champ next after this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's just again, kind of just killers across the board. I mean, it's interesting, right? I think that this side of the bracket, whoever fights Nemkov next is just it's another banger, right? It's just another fight that you like to think there's going to be big bombs and somebody's going to go down. The other side of the bracket's a little more grappling, obviously, with Corey Anderson and Ryan Bader.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think Bellator is having a lot of luck here with the matchups that are coming out of this.
Oh yeah, but so heads off to them. I think the Grand Prix tournaments are amazing to watch, wonderful to watch. It's a great product that they're having there. I think
Yeah.
Scott Coker's doing a great job with that. Now, let's go back to the UFC though. We got TJ Dillashaw as of right now. TJ
Yeah.
Dillashaw versus Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah.
Obviously there's we're questioning whether the fight's going to happen or not. But let's just go off as it's going to happen.
Yeah.
For
I
you.
will interrupt you really quickly
Go for it.
here. While I was sitting here, I noticed I have some alerts on from our MMA Junkie group, and I saw somebody posted a tweet that TJ, I don't know if you have a computer in front of you, but TJ tweeted something saying that he's out of the fight. So
Oh, okay. Well, he's out
breaking
of the
news.
breaking news here
Yeah.
from the source himself here.
Yeah.
So he's
So
out. So oh my goodness. It's gonna be a hard
brutal.
one. Ah man, I was very excited for that one, man.
And I think I jinxed this because I was talking to somebody else today and I was like, man, look at the main events. Like you got, Reyes Prochazka next weekend.
Yeah.
You have the sick UFC 252 card. You got the two bantamweight killer fights bookending that pay-per-view. Like, oh, it's gonna be sweet. And now there we go, poof, like that. Just because I said something nice about the MMA gods, just have to take something away like that.
Yeah. Oh man. I was very disappointed. Man, I was very
Yeah.
excited for Corey Sandhagen. I think he's probably devastated on that one, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, it's not even like a scenario too where you can like bring in somebody else or give him a fight that means as much. I mean, that was the fight. That was the guy that would have gotten him to a title shot. And I'm not sure there's another guy in this division that will get him there. Like,
Me neither. And then with
yeah,
with Sterling being out now, I mean, like right now, Corey's. I mean, he's been on a run, but man, you had the DQ finish. That
yeah,
was very puzzling to Corey Sandhagen's future when it came to
yeah.
getting a title shot. Then you have this big fight, you win, you're in, pretty much. And now this happens, man. I mean, what do you think Corey should do at this point then?
It's tough, man. I think it's going to be it's unfortunate, but I think you got to bite the bullet and wait. I mean, if you look at who else is in that division at the top right now that like is available, Pedro Munoz would be one, Jose Aldo would be another, but I don't think Aldo can take a fight that quick on that short notice. So really, your only option would be Pedro, and I don't think that Corey's going to gain much momentum from beating Pedro. Like, sure, it's another win. You can say, oh, he won 3 fights in a row instead of 2. At the same time, it seems like a risky matchup. Who knows? Dillashaw's out because of a cut, so who knows? It could be a short turnaround, So unfortunately, you wait another month and a half to fight. But it seems like a smart decision versus risking it all against a tough guy like Pedro Munoz.
Oh, definitely. If I were Corey, I'd sit it out, man. I mean, I'd sit it out. I mean, it sucks. I mean, because especially from listening to him and how the process that he goes through camps and stuff, and how he's just full on, like every athlete should, of course, right? And I imagine so. But I mean, just hearing like this, the detail and everything of what he goes through when he goes through the camp, it's a hard one, man. I'd wait. I definitely wait. I don't think there's another fight. It's either a title shot or a TJ fight, because I don't think
Yeah.
any other fight really does much better. And if again, like you said, if you risk it and gets popped, we've already talked about fighters getting caught early in the first round. I mean, that could end it right there for you.
100%. It doesn't help him either that the two guys maybe that would have been able to fill in, Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt, are matched up at the end of the month. So I mean, maybe Corey can kind of stay ready just in case something happens to one of them and maybe slip in there. I think that would be less of a step backwards or a sidestep, especially beating somebody like Garbrandt with his name recognition, I think would be big. But I don't think, if you're out there training for big fights that are going to earn you titles, I don't think the most prime way to do it is to sit around and be halfway in training camp hoping somebody falls out. I just would accept whatever date the UFC throws at me for Dillashaw and just cut my losses.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's no point of doing a lateral move at this point.
Yeah, no, totally, man. You gotta, again, MMA giveth and MMA taketh away, right?
No, definitely. So let me go to the UFC 262 card. Interesting one here in Houston, Texas. It'll be a great one. Banger fights, man. And I'm telling you, like, this fight is completely stacked all the way from like the ESPN Plus card to the main card itself. ESPN Plus has, Edmund Shabazian versus Jack Hermanson. That's a very exciting
Yeah,
fight in itself, man. So that's exciting. But then the main card, Tony versus Benil. Benil's a tough guy, man. He's a very, very tough fight for Tony. And obviously, I'm not surprised because Tony, is crazy and he'll fight anyone. But very puzzling when it comes to Tony needing a win here.
it's very tricky to figure out, right? When somebody kind of that's only lost to the best finally takes a step backward, and then somebody else that's had a sudden spike in their success and momentum meet in the middle. It's very confusing to figure out where each guy's at, right?
Yeah.
So I like the style matchup a lot because it's not somebody that I think is gonna go out there and really put a hurting on Tony on the feet. Although Beneil has showed he has power and he has some serious striking. But it'll be interesting if it hits the ground. I'm very interested in that. Two guys that are really good at submissions, and to see if Tony can kind of use his vintage. I'm going to put myself in a little bit of danger to put you in even more. I'm very intrigued by the style fight. I think that it's good matchmaking on the UFC's part, and good for Ferguson to not sit around and think that he needs a bigger name or whatever. Like, this is a move that shows me he really thinks he can still be one of the best in the world, and that he's determined to get back up there.
And there's not a better person to go out there and prove it against than Benil. Benil's, an absolute stud. And, seeing him fight against Diego Ferreira, he implemented a great game plan against him. And, you really got to see, Benil do great things, especially on the feet. It was very impressive. With Tony, a lot of people are throwing shade and saying things like, oh, it's over, his time has passed, all these little things. But I told myself, all right, people need to take a step back. He lost to Gaethje. He wasn't prepared to fight Gaethje. He took him. You can debate. It was a short notice fight. He was prepared for Khabib, and let's not forget that this was happening literally at the beginning of COVID. For the most part here, people didn't know how to handle these things. People didn't know how to train. People didn't know how this whole virus works. We still don't know for the most part, Nolan, how this thing works. We think we do, but in all reality, we're not out of the woods yet. So
Right.
imagine that being at the beginning of the pandemic. He loses that fight. Gaethje is no joke. Would have done that fight in a full camp. That guy hits hard. Then you go and he fought against Charles Oliveira. Well, Charles Oliveira is on a huge, winning streak, and he is a top three, lightweight in the world. He is an absolute banger. He's a stud. He is as talented as they come, and he's a great grappler, man. I mean, very few can do it better than him. And he lost to him, and he lost to him. So he lost to two exceptional fighters during a COVID period or a pandemic period here, where it's tricky to train. And how much content can you have? How are safety protocols handled? So I'm telling everyone, like, let's relax. Let's watch Tony fight against Benio, even though it is going to be it doesn't get any easier. But I do think that people jumped off the train a little bit too quick. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, look at the two guys that he fought. One of which went on, both of them went on to fight for the undisputed title after that. So
Yeah.
certainly he has not lost to bums, even though he has been largely dominated in the last 8 rounds or 8 rounds. That was my math. My math skills coming through there. The last 8 rounds of fighting he's been dominated in, but it's been to the best of the best. So you can't knock him on that. And I think, honestly, one of the more underlooked parts too of that Gaethje, that whole scenario is like, and I'm going to sound maybe like the wimpy media member over here, but like cutting weight unnecessarily twice in the span of a couple of weeks to prove a point, like when he cut it and made it for the date that he was supposed to fight Habib, like during a pandemic, maybe when you don't have the resources to, like, I can't imagine that's doing your body much good, just from a physical standpoint. Like, I get it, mentally you want to be ready, you want to show the world this, that, and the other thing, but like, I can't imagine that's great for your body. I mean, talking to fighters that take short notice fights back to back, like even when they have 4 or 5 weeks, it can be a real challenge. So who knows what he was even at that point? Who knows if his ability to take damage was hindered at all during that? But I think this is good matchmaking. And like I said, shows that he's serious about getting back to the title.
Now, if he loses, though, well, then I think everyone's probably going to start looking for me.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
Everyone's going to say he's done, retired, all that stuff. I'm sure we've heard it. He should retire. But for me, I mean, again, look at who knows where Benny's going too. Like, for all we know, he could be 2 fights away from a title shot. So I guess we'll have to see the manner he loses in, and is there a step in the right direction? Is there any positives to pull out if he loses? But definitely it is a tough position to be in if you lose 3 fights in a row, and especially if it's a lopsided one.
No, definitely. I'm gonna go with Tony though. I still believe in him. I still believe that
Yeah.
he still got what it takes. We'll see on that one. What do you think? Where are you going?
I'm going to lean with Tony as well. I think it'll be a very close fight, maybe even like a split decision of some sort, or just a kind of one of those unanimous decisions that like people score different ways. So that's what I'm going to lean with. I'm going to say close decision, Tony Ferguson.
Now Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz is a very interesting matchup. To me, it felt like it came out of nowhere.
Totally.
It did
Totally.
just because I mean, then seeing how Leon fought, obviously he didn't want to give Muhammad, the rematch, which I mean, you could argue he shouldn't, depends on what side of the ball you want to be in. But I mean, what do you think of this fight though? Nate hasn't fought since I believe it was 2019 when he lost to Jorge Masvidal. I know
Yeah.
that's the fight that he lost. That was the last time he fought. I just don't know if I have the year right, but that was the last incident where Nate went out there and fight. I just don't know about this matchup, man. What can you tell us about this with your insights?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I was shocked when I heard it, and part of it was due to the fact Leon had just fought. Like we were just in the aftermath of his fight, the whole eye poke thing. Will Bilal get a rematch? And then boom, Nate Diaz out of nowhere. But the thing that shocked me the most is like we've heard for. I think you were right. November 2019 was the last time he fought, and since then we had heard. Everybody speculates every time Nate tweets, oh, when's he going to come back? Who's he going to fight? Is it Connor? Is it Poirier? Is it Masvidal again? Like big names. And no offense to Leon Edwards, but like to me, for that to be the fight that draws Nate out of like his hiatus was just shocking. I mean, it's a very difficult fight. It's against a guy that perhaps doesn't have the name recognition. It's just not the best style matchup for Nate, I don't think. So I was just stunned, to be honest with you, that would be something that the UFC, for all the struggles they have for Nate Diaz putting pen to paper, that Leon Edwards is the guy that they get to have him fight again.
Yeah, I mean, you look and you're like, oh, is he gonna fight Connor or is he gonna fight, Dustin or
Right.
what can you do or maybe Chandler, right? Or Gage, I don't know, some
Totally.
crazy stuff like that. And you're like Leon, and Leon's a
Yeah.
good fighter, and we've agreed on that. But again, the name, the brand, the cachet, of that, it's it's a little puzzling, and I think it's a bad fight for Nate in my opinion there, just because I think Leon's got a whole tool bag, man, and I think Nate's as tough as they come, and I'll never doubt Nate Diaz again after seeing that first Conor McGregor fight. Never doubt him again. It's an interesting fight. I'm gonna roll with Leon in this though. I just it's very tough. I mean, both I can't even see the inactivity here because Leon really hasn't been active either. Besides that fight with Muhammad.
Yeah. I'm leaning like 50-45 Edwards. Like I just think, again, Nate, like you said, you can't count out Nate. He's an excellent fighter, but I just think like style wise, momentum. I don't want to say momentum, but like progression wise, like, Nate kind of got thrashed by Masvidal. Like, sure, it was stopped on cuts, but it was not a very close fight. And for me, I don't know. I don't necessarily think maybe Leon could put that beating on the feet against Nate, but I think if it gets, to the ground and stuff, I think Leon can control him there. I don't know. I just see it not being a very close fight, unfortunately. Like, I would like them to give the Diaz brothers, whoever Nick comes back against and Nate going forward, like give him somebody that, I don't know. So give him a bigger name, give him somebody that's fun. Just don't give him Leon Edwards.
Oh, no, definitely. Like so like when him and Connor were like grudging over like leading up to the rematch, that was awesome entertainment. And I don't want anybody to get hurt, but when they were throwing water bottles and stuff, like man, isn't that like great like content for you to go back to and like watch and tell yourself, man, Nate Diaz doesn't give a what.
Totally.
It's
I mean, those
crazy.
are like iconic moments, and the personality clash. I think the biggest thing about the McGregor era and the Diaz era, like that whole thing was like the style matchup, right? Like the fact that all that stuff would happen, get people to tune in, and then they would not be disappointed. And for this, like, I feel like you don't have that build up and the style matchup isn't as sexy. So I don't know. Again, like I said earlier, there's 3 parties involved and you got to get everybody to agree. I know the UFC is a tough job, but you would have thought for a guy that gets called out every day on Twitter, Nate Diaz, that they would have been able to find somebody else to put that name on the line.
Brother, I would have seriously, if they were going to go this way, I would have tried to give him Luca.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Vicente would, I think that would be more of a slugfest for sure.
Yeah.
I think it would be more visually, aesthetically pleasing for fans. So I don't know. That's why I'm not a matchmaker. So who
Yeah,
knows what went on
yeah,
behind the scenes?
that's
Yeah,
we're talking about. That's why we're talking about them here.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So now, what do you think about that main event? Finally, here we got Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. It's a very to me, it's not a very shocking matchup. Again, we're talking about the casual fans that don't really pay attention to like some of the details there that aren't always looking at what's going on here. Dustin Poirier didn't want the fight. He didn't want to fight Michael Chandler, and a lot of people have argued, "Oh, why is Michael Chandler there? He doesn't deserve it." Obviously, now there's your clarity. Poirier didn't want the fight. Uh, it's a very interesting one though. I think Michael Chandler can be a very tough threat to Charles Oliveira, who's been on a huge hot streak though,
Yeah.
and is as tough as they come. We were talking about how great of a fighter he is. Where do you think this fight goes to, man? What's interesting about this?
I mean, I think like I don't know, maybe this is like my transition from fan to somebody maybe covers like the sport a little bit more. It was just like
Yeah,
some of these fighters' storylines, like the whole build, I think is so important. And to hear the fact that when Bruce Buffer announces either, the winner's name at UFC 262, that either Charles Oliveira or Michael Chandler is going to be a UFC champion, either one of those stories is just so phenomenal. Like Oliveira, you have a guy that has had so many ups and downs from being in the UFC at a young age. At one point, he was pegged as like the guy who couldn't take damage, the guy who quit, the guy who, when Max Holloway punched him or scratched him in the throat, he had a problem. And when Paul Felder elbowed him in the head, he covered up. All that criticism for him to go out at this point in his career after all those fights and reinvent himself has been phenomenal. And what a story that would be if he gets hit the belt wrapped around his waist on fight night. Then conversely, you kind of have the obvious, which is like Michael Chandler, the ugly step cousin that was never that was cast away, the champion from somewhere else, the guy that wasn't good enough, the guy that was fighting in the B League organization.
yeah,
For him to come in and somehow be the face of the UFC's best division, the one that everybody's talked about for a long time as being the most exciting, having the biggest names, you name it, in his second UFC fight to have a UFC title. I mean, again, either way, I think the UFC is going to hit it out of the park. I think the champion, whoever gets that belt wrapped around the waist that night, will be somebody that has a huge wave of momentum, a huge boost, a huge pedestal to stand on, and rightfully so, because the journeys for both of these guys have been very different, but very difficult and very improbable in a lot of ways.
now where are you leaning with in that fight? I'm going with Chandler.
I'm going to lean with Chandler. I think that Charles obviously has the threat of the takedown. I think his striking's gotten way better. I mean, he went out there and put on kind of a striking clinic to a certain degree against Tony Ferguson. But I still think Michael Chandler, again, big moment guy, fundamentals guy, wrestling background. I think Chandler will get it done inside the distance with punches. I really
Def-
do.
Definitely, I think more anything with that. I mean, I think that the edge goes to Oliveira when it comes to going into the ground with the grappling. He's got some sick grappling. I think Chandler. I think with Chandler, I think the strategy should be try to keep it on the feet. He's got mean power with both of his hands. Obviously, we saw that with Dan Hooker. And I think that Chandler's going to go in there and like every fighter should, right? Try to get this done as fast as possible. But I think Chandler's going there kind of with a bit chip on his shoulder, and both of them are right. Who isn't to say that both of them aren't? Which for reasons that you just said right now, I think just Chandler has got this refreshing, fresh start here, and I think he's ready to take that next step and to be the champion of the most popular MMA organization in the world, the UFC. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch here.
100%. There's not many people that I think, at least in this stage in his career, I don't think Michael Chandler could have played his cards much better from his last fight in Bellator, going out there on a contract fight, beating Benson Henderson, entering free agency, going to the UFC, playing the whole, shrugging off the whole Bellator versus UFC thing. Like, he tipped his cap to Bellator, but it was all UFC, UFC, UFC. Go out there, make a statement against Dan Hooker, do a great Mike promo, get in a title fight. Like, I think the momentum on his side is, as a guy that I know he's very spiritual, very, he loves the mental side of the game. I can't imagine that he could be riding much higher coming into this fight. I think it's his to lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be such a great story. I mean, again, both guys deservingly so. I'm not going to be mad if Charles wins that fight. Again, he deserves it
No,
for obvious reasons that you just pointed out there. It's going to be an interesting one, though. Real quick, as we're going in towards the back end of the show now, Nolan, I had the privilege of talking to Mike Bond, last year on the show, and this was actually not even last year. It was actually earlier this year. It was right before the Connor versus Dustin fight, and he was over there at Abu Dhabi. Got the privilege, one of the smartest people I've ever gotten to talk to, and we were talking, and I told him I don't get why people are favoring Connor so much besides just the popularity. When it comes to Dustin Poirier, and he agreed with me and told me that, yeah, I mean, I think Dustin's got a legitimate chance to win this fight. Obviously, fight happened. We saw the results. Spoiler alert for everyone. Conor McGregor fans were disappointed. We got the third matchup though now, and it's going to be very exciting. July 10th, it's going to happen. Believe somebody was telling me it's International Fight Week during that week.
I
Not
think
sure.
so. I don't know if they've officially announced it, but
Yeah,
that is the
around the time.
traditionally that was the card that they would have had that for.
Yeah. So can you offer what you think of that fight, or what was your takeaway in the second fight versus, the third fight? Who do you think is gonna win this fight?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult, right? And I think it's really easy to jump on board with the guy that just won and say, hey, look what he just did. That's gonna happen again. But I do think there's something to be said about Conor McGregor's improvement as a fighter. And if you go back and watch that first round of the Poirier fight, Poirier had his moments of momentum, but it was close. The first round was very close, and I think there were some points in that fight. If Conor had, been a little bit further in on one of his punches, like we could have never even seen it got to that point. Right. And so it is very, very, very close. I see a lot of people thinking that Poirier is just going to whip him or that he's just going to go out there and knock him out again. I think that's very difficult thing for me to just commit to. I'm going to lean with Dustin because I think a lot of times, I mean, what did my mind just go to? It went to, how can Conor get better? But I also think like Dustin has some takeaways that he can have from that fight as well. Like he had some tribulations in the first round. So I am going to lean with Dustin. I think maybe it goes later in the fight, championship rounds, maybe even a decision. But I'm going to say Dustin Poirier gets it done. I'm going to say by submission, like in the fourth round. I think maybe he'll get Conor down, get him tired, and pull off a sub.
Yeah. I asked Mike, why is Connor doing this? He gave me
Yeah.
the best answer you could have. Legacy. Talk to me, went on to tell me, it's all about his legacy, and that's why he's doing this. I think right now, and I'm telling you this right now, Connor, no one may admit it, and people might even call me crazy for saying this. I think this is as much pressure as he's gonna have going into a fight, just because of the fact that the brand that is Conor McGregor, the whiskey brand, and especially after coming off that loss, the pressure's here for him. Because if Conor McGregor loses his fight, the only thing I could probably argue, or that you and I can debate on what's next for him, would probably be a Nate trilogy fight.
Yeah.
After that, it just doesn't entice me to watch him go up against the Michael Chandlers of the world, the Charles Oliveira of the world. Because the thing about Conor and all these fighters is he's set. Again, it's only for legacy. He's got a family and stuff, and I think that he obviously is sitting on millions of dollars now, which is something not a lot of these fighters have, that are willing to literally just lay it all on the line in that octagon. Granted, I'm not saying that Conor isn't, but there was a different kind of feel to that loss against Dustin. Whether it was, it just doesn't hurt as much as it used to, or seeing those kind of things really puzzle me. And another thing with me is, I really believe that Conor should have taken another fight before going back to Dustin, just because of the inactivity. Inactivity, I think, is such a huge thing. I know there's guys like Dominic Cruz that don't believe in that, but inactivity is such a huge deal, and you want to, be on the shelf and then come back to face an absolute killer in Dustin Poirier, and then expect to beat him. Obviously, we saw the result there, and then to come back again and not give yourself another fight to get your rhythm, get your leggings, even if it's a tune-up fight, and then you're just gonna go right back to him. Obviously, if anyone can do it, it's Conor. We've seen it, but it really, I err on the side of caution with this. A lot of people are telling me still Conor. I'm going with Dustin. I didn't really necessarily doubt Dustin going into that second fight. I'm not doubting him this time. I think that he's going to get a lot more takeaways from this fight. And I think for Conor, it's going to really hurt not doing this on a consistent basis, and being all that, inactivity is really going to hurt him. Your view on that?
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think there's always been this urge for him to kind of come back and just throw himself right into the spotlight. And it's kind of, it has helped him at times when he rematched Nate. And that was a fight that didn't necessarily really make that much sense. He wanted it. UFC gave it to him. He went out there and capitalized on the moment. And that, I felt like, boosted his stock back up. Now, on the flip side of that, if he goes out here and he beats Dustin, then phenomenal. Like I
Everything
think his
opens up.
stock will boost a little bit as well. But if he loses, I mean, I think we're going to see an almost irreparable stock drop off for Conor McGregor. I mean,
I agree with you.
this is going to sound bad, but people kind of tune into these fights to see the unbeatable lose, right? So now you're going to have seen him tap twice. You're going to have seen him get knocked out at least once, or maybe a second time if Dustin pulls it off, losing to the same fighter in back-to-back fights. I mean, the only big fight I think that would await him if Dustin goes out there and finishes him again is the Nate Diaz trilogy. I think that would be something that people would dig across the board regardless, just because the history, it's the third chapter. You know, Conor and Nate are always going to have a certain amount of mojo, put them together. It's a great recipe.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, it's going to be really tough for him to rebuild if he goes out there and loses to Dustin like he did last time.
Yeah. And, you know, the UFC is a better organization with Conor McGregor winning.
100%.
To be honest with you. And you know, you love the content that this guy, you know, puts out there. Granted, obviously some of the hijinks have been kind of crazy and I don't want anyone to get hurt. But like I told you, man, it's crazy content and go back and look back and say, hey, I remember seeing Conor McGregor do that crazy stuff there. You know, it's great for the UFC. It's great business, but obviously we'll see. I feel like this is, you know, he's at the point of his career where this is the most amount of pressure, which is crazy to say, man, with somebody who's got millions in the bank.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. And you know, that's the thing. Like, for better or worse, all the BS, all the low lows that we've trash talk and people throwing stuff through bus windows, like, and you can even, you know, people argue about how good Conor McGregor is, where does he stand in the pound for pound all time list, all that stuff. Like, what he did and the ceilings that he pushed and the new heights that he brought the sport to, like, I don't know if, you know, I'm 26 years old. I don't know if I'll ever see somebody in my lifetime that's going to have pushed MMA into the limelight as much as Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, Conor McGregor, like, regardless of the hijinks, and obviously some of those things were, you know, low or however people want to characterize
Sure.
this, but it's sold, man. It got you to buy the
100%.
pay-per-view, man. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
so
there's nothing better than two fighters that really don't like each other. And he seemed to, whether it was an act that he put on or whatever, he always got whoever he was fighting not to like him. And I think that honestly kind of made me curious about the Poirier, the last one. Like, the friendliness was cool. I think it was almost like shocking to see, like, wow, Conor McGregor shaking hands with somebody. This is kind of dope. At the same time, I wonder how much that factored into, like, him not having that fire, that kind of aura about him, you know?
yeah, you know, it kind of felt a little flat. And that's what I
Yes.
go back to tell my, friends of mine. You know, it kind of felt a little bit flat watching that. Obviously, you know, he's entitled to, you know, do whatever he wants. Obviously, maybe he wants to signal that sense of like maturity and how much he's grown. But man, it's always fun to watch old school Connor, man.
100%. I have to say, I think his Twitter, if he does run it, I'm not really sure if he's got a ghostwriter or what, but recently I think the tweets have gotten a little more in his vintage wheelhouse.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, some of the insults are kind of unique and stuff like that. So who knows? I guess we'll see what Connor shows up to the next press conference, and maybe I'll give you a different take after I see that.
Oh man, that'd be great to enjoy. Now, real quick before we sign off, Nolan, is there anything you're looking forward to in the world of mixed martial arts as we, you know, are making our journey through 2021?
Yeah, man, I'm just looking forward to, you know, the ball just need to keep rolling. You know, I needed to the more events, the better for the fans, the better for me. So I'll be back down at Bellator for the next four the May and June events. We'll see where they. Sounds like they're maybe moving out of New England after that, back to some more normal shows with fans and things. So I'll be down there for that. You guys can check out my coverage on Junkie, but oh man, I'm just looking forward to being able, you know, maybe what I'm looking forward to most is going to cover an event, UFC event, where there are fans in the crowd. I need to hear that, what we heard on Saturday night. I need to hear that in person. I need it. That's when I'll know normal's back, you know?
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, do you watch PFL by any chance?
I did. Yes.
Great. They have great talent there, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes people think, oh, when like bigger names lose, like Pettis lost right off the bat, it's a bad thing. I think the fact that there were 3 upsets like that on their first night made people talk about them more than if Anthony Pettis got a head kick, you know?
Definitely 100%. Because you know what? It just shows you how much the company's evolving and how truly deep and talented like their fighters are and their divisions are right now.
100%.
Crazy.
You know, and they perhaps are more willing to take international talent. Maybe not. The UFC is doing a better job at it now, but
Yeah.
for a while their PFL was like loading the roster with the guys with the OBs at the end of their name, you know. And I think it was kind of bland to some people, but the talent's always been super legit there. Like they'll go to some countries that maybe aren't necessarily known for MMA and find some dudes and bring them in, and they just run, you know, they just run the show. So props to them. I'm glad, again, more MMA, the better for everyone involved, and happy to see them on the big ESPN slot. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the card of this Friday as well.
Yeah, same here. Shout out to Tyler Diamond, who was a guest on the show. Congratulations on his
Look
unanimous
good. That was a
decision
fun
win.
fight.
Oh, definitely, man. I
Yeah.
mean, some big boss stuff right there when, he
Yeah.
went from the near finish to going back to the takedown and recovering from that. Man, it was awesome to watch. Congratulations to him. And I think this is where we're gonna leave it off, Nolan. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, you guys can check me out at Twitter at MMA_Kings if I hadn't plugged that enough. And then Instagram, I'm building, I'm getting better at it at Nolan King MMA. So you can check me out there. And yeah, we got you covered, MMA Junkie. And appreciate you having me on, man. This was fun. We got to do it again sometime.
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna have the links to all of Nolan's accounts in the description below, and to all the audience. If you're gonna watch the fights, enjoy. If you're going out, just stay safe, guys. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.